Welcome to Texas, everybody. I'm working on an assignment about crucifixion, and I love it because it is such an interesting and intricate topic. There's some people who believe that Jesus Christ never actually rose from the dead because he never actually died. Now, first flaw in that through crucifixion is that the Romans were really good at killing people. I don't know a lot about Roman history, but to my understanding, Romans were really good at annihilating people. Crucifixion was a good method for them. And if they didn't kill the person on the cross, then it was their life. So I don't know about you, but for me personally, if it's somebody else's life in that situation, I'm going to want to make sure that they're dead, which is what they do. They spear Jesus in the side. Obviously, he's flogged before he even gets to the cross, so his organs and everything else is possibly hanging out. He's losing major amounts of blood. And then, of course, he's nailed to a cross where he suffocates. Jesus, of course, gives up his life, but he suffocates to death by giving up his life at the end of it. There are two medical examples that I think are very interesting in Scripture that a lot of people are like, that's not really true. I came to the interest for crucifixion through Lee Strobel's book. Lee Strobel was a prominent atheist, not a prominent atheist, but a prominent journalist for the Chicago Tribune who was a really popular atheist in his workplace. And he set out to disprove Christianity, and he realized that the evidence actually points to Christianity. And one of the chapters in the book is about crucifixion, which is where I found some interesting medical terms that I really had no understanding of. And there's some people who look at Scripture and they're like, oh, those two things right there, those can't even be possible. But they're actually very true. Jesus was under great stress. He had dinner before he went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. He understood that his time was coming where he was going to die because he's God. He's omniscient and omnipresent. He understands and sees things that we can't. So in the garden, Luke 22, verse number 44, and being in great anguish, which is a key word. Hematidrosis is where you sweat drops of blood. We're going to get into that medical definition in a second. And being in great anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. So Luke tells us that Jesus is in great anguish, and then he sweats drops of blood. I think a lot of people would be in great anguish if they saw what Jesus saw, of how his body was going to be mutilated and how he was going to die. And there are people that have that same medical condition under great stress, and that is what hematidrosis is. And for my nurses or doctors who are watching this, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, just call me out on that. I'm not a doctor. But it is where the blood vessels dilate to the point of rupture, and then they rupture into the sweat glands to where the sweat glands sweat out blood on your face. It's not like, the thick, dense blood, like if you cut your hand open, but it is a red-colored, like you are bleeding from your body, and that is a medical condition called hematidrosis. So that is biblical, and Luke, who is the writer of Luke, is also a physician, and he records that key aspect. He was under anguish, and he sweat drops of blood. Those two go hand in hand, or finger in finger, because they have to be together. If you're not under great stress or great whatever, you're not going to have any reason to be that stressed out to do that. And then the second is John chapter 19, verse number 34. Instead, this is after Jesus dies, instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. Now, a lot of people I've heard and read about have said, oh, that's it. That's not real either. That's not a medical condition. You can't have blood and water flowing from your body. But what medical doctors have discovered now is that there is a thing called pleural effusion, which means that under great stress, once again, there is a fluid buildup in your lungs as a result of a loss of fluid and as a loss of blood. Jesus was flogged, which means that his backside was literally broken open. He lost countless amounts of blood. He lost countless ounces of blood. He probably was not doing very good even walking to the cross, which is why he couldn't even carry his own cross, because you're probably seeing stars. So it's a blood loss or a fluid loss, and that loss builds up a fluid inside of your lungs. So when Jesus was speared in John 19:34, blood but also water came out of his lungs. These two are two medical conditions, hematidrosis and pleural effusion, which are caused by great stress, and they have tremendous effects. Jesus did not eat, and Jesus did not sleep for 18 hours, give or take. He had, or not even, it was more than that. Jesus had the Last Supper with the disciples, then he went to Gethsemane to pray and talk to God. Then he was arrested, and it went all throughout the night. He met with the Sanhedrin, he met with Pilate, and then he was crucified the next day. So Jesus didn't have any sleep. He was under great stress. He did not eat. His body was not functioning at all normal. And imagine just someone like you, if you're just pulling an all-nighter like me I've done, playing Xbox, the amount of tenseness that your body has because of that. Your body isn't meant to do that, and Jesus' body wasn't either because he was human. And he experienced that, and that is why we read what we read about the medical conditions, because they actually happen, because they actually can happen when your body is put under that kind of circumstance. You are loved.